The reality is, I think there's still a big overhang that women don't want to be wealthy. They do. And how we create that wealth is often, misconstrued, that we have less risk appetite.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the FT Studios for the latest episode of Tea Break with me, Yuri Bender, and my special guest, Fiona McKay, CEO of Lightbulb Leadership Solutions, an advisor who works with investment funds, banks and family offices. Welcome to the FT Studios, Fiona.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to see you again. And what kind of tea have you gone for today?
I've gone for good old northern breakfast tea.
I'm glad to see that, Fiona. In fact, I have as well, in your honour, because I spent many years, as you know, in your hometown of Manchester. I used to go to this small employment agency off Deansgate, and there was a lady who worked in there called Vanda, and it was a very traditional place. And they used to send women to jobs in offices, and they say to me, it's an all-female environment, we cannot send men to work there. And Stan was running the industrial section. It's suddenly very smoky in there, and they're all smoking the players number 6, and he said, got just the job for you, Yuri, heavy lifting up in Rochdale. It was never a pretty assignment, but in those days there was that barrier mid-80s between the jobs for men and jobs for women. Obviously things are very different today, but would you say that in the minds of some employers they still think like that?
I suppose it all depends on what sector you're in.
Yes.
And it all depends on the level of seniority
Yes.
that you're in. And I think there is still, I see very much an outward pouring of we support women in roles, particularly senior roles, but the reality of when those women get in senior roles often jars. What's said and what's truly believed are often quite different.
And that reality, Fiona, is becoming very apparent in succession planning, inheritance, the rise of the female entrepreneurs, particularly in their later years. And my colleague Ali, sadly he's not with us, he's gallivanting around Paris today.
Nice.
It's all right for some, isn't it? Ali was writing about the fact that a lot of the banks aren't prepared properly for the succession planning, particularly when it comes to women inheritors. Have you encountered the wealth managers who just really aren't on the same page as the female entrepreneurs, culturally or personally?
The reality is, I think there's still a big overhang that women don't want to be wealthy. They do. And how we create that wealth is often, misconstrued, that we have less risk appetite. Now, it's up to the early 70s that women had to get permission either from their husbands or their fathers as a second signatory to actually open a bank account. I genuinely believe there is a feeling that women don't want to be wealthy quick. We do. And we want to build wealth for the whole of our lives, for as long as we're here in good health as well.
You have the franchise you've created, the menopause maze.
Yeah.
And it's been very important for us as journalists, because some of the inspiring women in senior roles that we've interviewed, Ida Lu at Citibank, absolutely phenomenal. Sushan Tan, who runs DBS in Singapore. But there are less of these women, sadly, in Europe than there are in Asia. You go around the Asian boardrooms, there are women leaders in every sector. Why do you feel that is? Is this a cultural phenomenon?
Also as well, in those cultures, age and wisdom is really precious. Here in the UK and in Europe, there's a detrimental cut-off point often for women of a certain age. But the trends are changing significantly. HSBC did a recent study and published their findings on midlife female entrepreneurs. And 62% of those women said they're starting businesses not because they're forced to, but because they want to. They're backing themselves. So we will start to see that coming through more. We take the lead from Asia, who are doing phenomenal things, good education, cultural support, a real wealth of experience of women who are, realising their ambitions as they're getting older and not contracting them. It's phenomenal to see.
The women investors that I've spoken to are talking more about nurturing wealth for their families, and they're thinking about what's the impact of this wealth. ESG investment, they've had a bad rap recently. The industry lost its way a bit. Then you've got the likes of Trump and his cohort, and they're saying this is somehow un-American and it's against the way we live. Do you think that there'll be a renewed boost for ESG investments from this cohort of entrepreneurs in their later years that you're describing?
Yes, definitely preparing and distributing and creating wealth that lasts through generations and creates wealth through generational inheritance as well is important to women. It is good to see that banks are taking steps to understand and get preparedness around that, really understand the psychology of how women invest and what wealth creation means to them in terms of near and longer term lenses. And it's good to see more of it, please.
I mean, it's interesting the type of people that are profiled in the media, and there's been a lot of attention recently to Jacinda Ardern, the former New Zealand Prime Minister, really seen as a role model in political leadership. We've written about her before in PWM, and we can really contrast that coverage to the standoff between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, which is receiving blanket coverage. Do you feel that many in the business and financial world feel that they can run a firm without any real moral compass because the world's most powerful men are getting away with such outrageous and unethical behaviour?
It's a real dilemma, isn't it, in M&A when I'm involved working with funds to look at the risks and the opportunities, particularly around due diligence. Governance is massive around that. And that hasn't dissipated in any way. It's hard, isn't it, to keep that as a real near-term and long-term responsibility and obligation when the world's richest man and leader of the free world are behaving how they're behaving every night on our TV screens.
And you talk about this work in M&A, and my colleague Elisa has been writing about this, how many of the families are becoming major players in buyouts, transforming from silent partners into deal makers, with women now playing an increasing role in this. What sort of dynamics and commercial risks have you been identifying in your due diligence projects?
We're always looking for risk. We're always looking where the risk is going to be. Cyber is a big one. We're looking for preparedness. What we're also seeing for family offices is those women are, they're getting the line of succession is coming to them. They are inheriting family empires. They have got great educations. They have often gone off to work in industry and have done great things, and therefore they want to shape the value of those investments. They want to be active investors and not passive, and looking at next level downs as well. So not just within the current leadership team, but C-1 to C-2 to see where those capabilities are that we can bring through and where the hidden IP is.
And have you got your next leader? I know it's too early for you to be handing over the reins just yet, but you've got your young leaders lined up in your group as well that you're nurturing, Fiona?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you want your talent to fundamentally be surprising you and energising you and in ways shocking you as well, with new ideas for scalability and also adaptability, pivotability as well.
Well, sadly, I don't have my young pretender, Ali, with me today. He's in Paris, but he'll be joining us again next week. And sadly, that's all we've got time for today. Meanwhile, we look forward to seeing more of your questions submitted to us. And hopefully, I'll be joined by Ali next week on these famous green sofas for our next episode of our PWM Tea Break.